Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I am here for my March releases video. Can you guys believe that we're already into the third month of 2019? Like, I feel like, I know a lot of people said January took forever for them. For me, it was just like poof, gone. We're already into March. Thank God, because I'm ready for spring. But I just wanted to talk about some of the books that are coming out in March, and let me tell you, there are many. I'm going to do what I always do. I'm gonna briefly mention all the sequels and big titles that are coming out, and then get into detail about the 5 that I am personally most excited about. But if you guys want an extensive list, I will leave the Goodreads list linked down below that literally goes on forever. There's like 70 books coming out in March. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to get into all of the sequels that are coming out just because I don't need to give any sort of synopsis or description for those because they are sequels. But just know that all of these sequels come out on March 5th. I don't know what it is about March 5th, but apparently that is the day to go to the bookstore. The first book on the long list of books coming out on the 5th is The Everlasting Rose by Danielle Clayton. This is the sequel to The Bells, which I read and adored last year. It's a very unique fantasy, so if you haven't picked that up, now is the time. We also have The Queen's Resistance by Rebecca Ross. This is the sequel to Queen's Rising coming out. I adore these covers. I'm a big fan. I think they look great. We also have The Shadow Glass coming out by Rincha Pecco. This is the third book in the Bone Witch series, which I personally adore. I think this is the most underhyped series ever. I'm currently reading this. It's just as amazing to get back to this world as it was the first time. So if you haven't picked this series up, now is a good time. You got 3 books you can binge through. We have A Question of Holmes by Brittany Cavallaro. I believe this is the 4th book of this Sherlock Holmes gender-bent historical fiction story that I've heard good things about. Still haven't read it. There's 4 books of it now. We have Shadow Me coming out by Tahara Mafi. This is the Kenji novella that's kind of like book 4.5 of the Shadow Me series. And then following that in April, we have the next book coming out. So you have a little novella coming in March, and then the 5th book comes in April. So just a little bit to tide you over. We have Superman Dawnbreaker by Matt De La Pena, which is the 4th book of the DC Icons series that's coming out. And we have Deathcaster by Cinda Williams-Chima. This, I believe, is the 4th book of the Shattered Realm series. She's got a lot of realms in her world, and they all cast things. Am I wrong? Okay, that's the last sequel that I want to talk about though. Okay, so the first book that I want to talk about in greater detail is actually coming out on the 1st of March, which is strange. It's a Friday release, not a normal Tuesday release day for books, which is strange. But that is called The Fever King by Victoria Lee. So not only does this book sound amazing, I'll get into the synopsis in a second, but I also wanted to help promote this book because it has since kind of changed, but about a month ago, this book started to fall down the same path that I've seen other books go down that is just kind of like social suicide for the book community. Basically, what happened with this is very early reviewers got copies of this and were posting very, very negative reviews that were extremely homophobic, extremely anti-immigration, just very politically controversial reviews surrounding this book. And we have definitely seen that happen in the past with other books where just because it got early buzz about something that was controversial, everybody starts to get into the groupthink mentality and just start to put this book on blast whether they've read it or not. So I want to help promote this book just because it got very homophobic reviews to begin with, and I just think it's something that needs to be discussed. I generally don't like bringing the drama that is the book community onto my channel because I try and keep this a very welcoming, happy, excited book content channel, but this is something that I kind of wanted to just like bring up and say, hey, I'm aware of it, and I want to help promote this book. So this book, I think, is going to fall more in the dystopian sci-fi genre, but we are following a former United States. So we are set in the future, and we are following a 16-year-old named Noam who wakes up after a viral magic attack happened, and he is the sole survivor of it. And this magic attack left him as a technopath, which means he has the ability to control electronics. But a little backstory on Noam as a character: he is the son of illegal immigrants, and he has been fighting his entire life for refugees who are escaping these magic attacks. So it's kind of paralleling a lot of things that are happening in the real world, but in a fantasy setting. So he is very much on the side of helping refugees and finding solace from this viral magic that's happening. So because he got this ability from this viral magic attack to control electronics, it is brought to the Minister of Defense's attention, and he is brought into like this elite form of magic wielders, I guess, as a form of defense for the nation, and he kind of uses it as himself as a chance to infiltrate the people that he was fighting against. But while he is there, I believe he starts to fall for the son of the minister. So we have some queer representation, we have immigration representation, and it just seems like it's going to be a vitally important story and probably very heavy and impactful, and I'm real excited about it. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about is going to be another heavy hitter, but that's what I'm here for. That book is Heroine by Mindy McGinnis. You guys know that Mindy McGinnis is one of my favorite authors. She's an autobi author for me. All of her books that she comes out with are drastically different from her previous ones, but they all touch on very important things. So, obviously, this one is going to deal with the opioid epidemic that is happening right now. So our protagonist in this book is Mickey. She is a star softball player on her high school team. She is this big athlete in her town, and she just pretty much has her life set. She is aware of like the opioid epidemic that's happening and that overdoses happen, but she just kind of like brushes it to the side until she is in a car accident and has to basically get her whole hip reformed and is put on narcotics as pain relief for the surgery and for this huge accident that she went through. And when her prescription runs out, she starts to understand the concept of addiction and how it can affect you and how it can plummet your life down a hole that you weren't expecting it to take. So I think it's going to be a very poignant and eye-opening look into how this epidemic really does happen. It can literally just happen to like this perfect star straight A athlete and how they can fall down this hole so fast and how big of an issue it is. So I think it's going to be a very good internal look into the issue that our country is really struggling with. Personally, in my area, my county that I live in has a huge issue when it comes to opioids, and it's a big nationwide event. So this is, I think, going to be a very vital book that a lot of people should be reading because it's going to give a lot of internal perspective to what people deal with. So this comes out on March 12th, so moving into the second week of March, you can pick this one up. Okay, moving into the next Tuesday, we're on to the 19th of March, and the next book that I want to talk about is one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is Sherwood by Megan Spooner. Megan Spooner wrote Hunted, and you guys know that I sang that book's praises like to the high heavens last year or 2 years ago whenever I read that. I think that she is the best reteller of all the retellers in the YA community. That book just blew my mind, and she's here for another one. And this is a gender-bent Robin Hood retelling. I'm so excited. Basically, this is actually following Maid Marian, the Maid Marian character. She was betrothed to Robin of Locksley, but Robin of Locksley has perished before the start of this book. I don't actually know what happened, but he is no longer in the picture. And a lot of things start to go down in Nottingham that she is not okay with, so she dons Robin's green apparel and takes it upon herself to steal from the rich and give to the poor, and it's just, I am so ready for this. Like, I'm trying to go into this somewhat blind. That's all that I really know, is that it's a gender-bent Robin Hood, Maid Marian, flip of a story. I'm so excited for this. So March 19th is when we can finally get this one. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about also comes out on the 19th, and I have already read it, and okay, I'm going to try and contain my feelings. I think I'm going to do a full review of this book once I figure my thoughts out on it. But it's easily one of my favorite books of 2019, and I can confidently say that it's going to stay at the top of my list for the foreseeable future. And that book is The Weight of the Stars by Kay Ancrum. This is the second book that Kay Ancrum has come out with, the first being The Wicker King, which a lot of people read in January with Mel and Amy for the Dragons Tea Book Club. I talked about it on my channel. It was amazing. It's definitely a very polarizing book though. Like, a lot of people didn't receive it as well as other people did. It rubbed people the wrong way. This, I can confidently say, will probably not have the same effect. This reads a lot more like a contemporary. It's not as controversial, I guess, as The Wicker King was. I can see where the polarizing came from because there was a lot of unhealthy or toxic relationships in that book. This doesn't have the toxicity that I think that book did, even though I think it handled it well. Okay, we're not talking about The Wicker King. We're talking about The Weight of the Stars. So, I just read this. I can't even express how deeply I love this book. Like, her writing speaks to me on like a soul deep level. So this book is following Ryan, whose parents died in a car accident a couple years prior to this story. So she is the sole guardian and provider for her brother, who is a year younger than her and has a 1-year-old son. So she already has a lot on her plate as an 18-year-old in this book. But she basically takes it upon herself to kind of take any misfit or loner or new kid who has a bad rep in the town under her wing, and she has a group of friends who are just like this found family of bizarre misfit characters. But this story basically follows Ryan and her relationship with this new girl who moves into town named Alex. And Alex is this weird pariah of a character. Basically, long story short, for Alex's backstory, her mother was selected in a group of teenagers a long time ago, specifically like 17, 18 years ago, to go on a one-way mission into space. And right before this mission took off, her mother had her. She wasn't supposed to have children because she was a teenager, but mistakes happen. And basically, Alex was this left-behind child, and her mother went off into space, and she is just obsessed with trying to get audio waves of her mother, any sort of communication that she can get from her mother out in space. Hence why this book has like audio waves on the page edges. Everything about this book is stunning, let me tell you. So basically, Ryan also has a love of space because her mother worked for NASA, so there's this whole space subplot that goes into the story, but the actual plot is the relationship that forms between these two girls and how freaking beautiful it is. I can't even tell you much more about the plot beyond that, other than it's amazing. I highly recommend it. If you guys take my recommendation seriously, pick this book up. I sobbed through the entire last quarter of the book, so prepare yourselves for that. It's very heavily emotionally draining, but God, is it worth it. It's beautiful. So March 19th is when you can pick this up. This is gonna be a long video. I'm talking a lot in this video, aren't I? Let's move on to the next book. Okay, the last book that I want to talk about comes out at the end of March, so March 26th, like the last Tuesday of March, and that is Once and Future by Amy Rose Capetta and Corey McCarthy. They are a couple. It's precious. I am actually currently reading this, so I can give you my thoughts on like this much of the book so far. I'm digging it. So this is a sci-fi, gender-bent, Arthurian legend reimagining? That's a mouthful. That's a lot of description. Basically, this follows the tale of King Arthur and Excalibur and Merlin, but basically every generation since the actual original tale of King Arthur happened, he is regenerated in a new life form. And this time around, this is the 42nd regeneration of King Arthur. He regenerates as a girl. The whole concept of the Arthurian legend is that we get a person who has very little power, wields Excalibur, and gets a huge following of people to believe in the greater good and take down the big evil. And in this case, we are set very far in the future. This is very far from medieval fantasy. So we are set in space, and there is a big government conglomeration that is the big evil that we have to work on taking it down. So basically, there's just so much in this book that is just like gloriously represented. It is so queer positive. Every single character in this book is somewhere in the LGBT plus environment. Everybody is on the gender fluid scale. There's a lot of they, them pronouns. Gender fluidity is just the norm in this world and in the future. And I just love that it got to that point. There's so many little tidbits that are dropped in this book saying like how society has come from the point that we're at now and got to the point that it is in this book. It's amazing. So all I can speak is from this much of the book, but I am devouring it so far. So like I said, this comes out on the 26th of March. I highly recommend picking it up because not only is it hilarious, it's fast-paced, it's sci-fi, but it's also medieval. Like it takes place in like a medieval times restaurant type of thing, so we still get like knights in armor and the round table vibes, but in a weird sci-fi setting. It's great. It's great. Okay, I'm gonna move on from this book now. So that's all I've got for you guys in this video. I hope you guys are as excited about these reads as I am. Let me know down in the comments what you guys are looking forward to in March, because like I said, there's so many. So hit the subscribe button because I do these videos every single month, and I'll see you guys in my next video.